Matt Rule did a TikTok with Harper Murray yesterday. Reaction.
Yeah, I don't know how many, is he going to go have to do all these extra workworkouts now, these TikTok workouts? He seems to have changed
He did it in the football facility,
That's
dude.
right, yeah,
he did it. What is this? Actually, it wasn't. It's like the entrance area.
That's right, yeah.
It's like where some of the trophies are and stuff, Anyway, sorry, go ahead. I mean,
well, it's where the greatest fans of college football walk through those doors, right?
That's right.
So it was football facility to me, but I think it's all together. It's having fun. And getting more exposure to one Harper Murray and one to the Nebraska football program. It kind of helps out both ways. As I understand, she's a TikTok star.
What do you think of the crossover with volleyball and football here? That was my first reaction, was the crossover between sports. I was like, all right, I like where this is going. This is pretty cool. What do you think of the crossover aspect of it between sports?
Well, yeah, he had said too before that like the reason he found out about all the TikTok stuff and from the players' side was that Harper Murray was doing a TikTok or showing off a TikTok to his daughter. So I guess there is at least some closeness between those programs, or at least between Harper Murray and the Rule family. So that makes some sense, but it's a good crossover for Nebraska football. You call it kind of getting the rub of a winning program.
Getting the rub, using the wrestling term. I like it. What did you think when Cook was doing all these TikToks with Harper Murray, and now Danny Busboom Kelly did one? It's been a few weeks ago now, or a couple weeks at least. She did her first TikTok with Harper Murray, and there was, I believe, another player or two in there as well. But what were your thoughts when you saw Cook doing this really around the beginning of volleyball season last year? Because when I saw it, I thought two things. Because Harper's been through a lot, which shows a lot of resiliency. And it was kind of his way of connecting, I felt, with like a younger generation, younger players. If we're being honest, there's a bunch of young high school players that are going to see this, and they're going to be intrigued by a coach that's willing to do this, okay? Especially at the time, we didn't know he was going to retire. An older coach, like, hey, can I really relate to this dude? Oh, this dude's on TikTok with his players. This is pretty cool. I thought all of that was great. The only hesitation I ever had, because sometimes when you do that, I got to try to phrase this right, because you, as a coach, you don't want players to see you like as directly equal because you're an authority figure, but yet you want to be relatable because you want them to know you care about them. And I was like, man, I wonder if over time this skews maybe a little bit too much towards relatable and not enough towards authority. But I never once saw that during volleyball. Never once saw it. When they lost to Penn State both times, Penn State was just better. I mean, it happens sometimes, okay? It's all right. Penn State, best team in the country this year. Kudos to them. We'll see what happens next year. But that was my only hesitation. But as it unfolded, I was like, man, I think this is great for recruiting. I think this is just fun. I think it's a way of bringing a team together, relating to younger players. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, some of that thought process kind of came into my mind too. They do pranks on them and stuff like that. But it just kind of reminds you of just when, if they started losing, if they made a second round exit, that would start to be, he's messing around too much on TikTok. But that helps if you win there. And then on the Harper Murray side of it, I just think it's fantastic. Because there were a week or two where our text line was filled with some different comments of get her out of here and all this sort of stuff. And, young people are allowed to make mistakes. And so, but they could have, a coach could have given up on her and then bringing her back. You could have told her, all right, we've had some negative press. Just stay on this. Just stay out of everything, and not allowed her to kind of show off her personality and to become what she has. And so it's just awesome to see her image turn from a little bit, kind of troublesome. Like I said, young people make mistakes into TikTok star that basically can get anybody on the University of Nebraska to have some fun doing some dances with her on there. So I think that's been an incredible transformation.
I think great point. Winning cures 99.9% of everything. If they lose, people are immediately going to come back to that. Oh, you weren't focused. You were joking. In the moment, they're going to love it. But revisionist history and hindsight 2020 is an amazing thing in this world. But hey, like I said, they just lost to a better team. That happens sometimes. They lost twice. So it wasn't like it was just one time. Like Penn State was the better team this year. Well, again, we'll see what happens next year. So that's a good point. Hey, as long as you're winning. It's kind of like I've said with Dylan. Hey, you're going to go around, you're going to do this statewide tour and all these games and public appearances and be in the middle of the limelight every freaking where. That's okay as long as you're winning. I've said it, as long as if it's part of a package that wins, I'm okay with it. Everybody's personality is different. Like look at, I'm not saying Dylan's Joe Namath, but look at Joe Namath. He's as out there as you can be. The bold proclamation before Super Bowl III was crazy. And then they followed up. And he's been a legend ever since. There's a lot of people who don't even know that he played at Alabama or anything else that he did. They just know that. Some people don't even know that. They just know the name Joe Namath, but it went to another stratosphere with that. So it all comes back to, are you handling your business on the field, diamond, and or court of competition? And if you are, it doesn't mean you have to win it all. Nebraska volleyball, obviously everyone wanted them to. The expectation is next year to compete for a national title. They didn't win it all, but as long as you're handling your business and people can see that you are, it's kind of, it's going to be okay. But if you're not, that's where things get interesting. So when you hear about Dylan working hard and losing the weight and learning how to be a leader and all those things, that's very encouraging stuff. And if that's part of the package that, hey, I like to be in the limelight at times too, or whatever the case may be, hey, that's cool. Are you handling your business on the football field? And if you are, I'm not going to have any problems with it. All right. When I had teammates, I had all sorts of different teammates. Like, I never cared. Like I think I've mentioned this before. I've lived in every time zone for over a decade. East Coast was 6 years, so just over half a decade. But from Mountain Time to Central Time till I grew up on the West Coast for 14 years. And then the East Coast, been all over the place, met all sorts of different types of people. I know what part of the country likes what kind of music, and I know this and that, and all sorts of different teammates that you could possibly, the different locker rooms that I've been in, from different sports to different levels to different regions to different everything. Okay, I've been exposed to a lot of different people. I never cared about anything except for two things. Were you busting your butt, and did you help contribute to giving us a chance to win? If you did those two things, I didn't really care. I didn't even care if you weren't that good. Were you busting your butt, and were you doing what you could to help give us a chance to win? If you were a scout team guy, were you giving us a proper look? And were you firing off and making us better? If you're supposed to be an All-American, are you producing like an All-American? You know, it was all relative to what realistic expectations were for that individual, myself included. Nobody's harder on myself than I am on myself, but my point is that's all I ever cared about. Were you busting your butt? And were you doing what you could to help improve our chances of winning? Beyond that, I never really cared. So to me, that's how I kind of look at players nowadays. Hey, you want to do all this other stuff? You want to do this, or you don't want to do this? Okay, I played with guys who didn't want to do any of this. That's cool. I don't really care. I don't care where you're from. I don't care how tall you are. I don't care about any of that. Were you busting your butt, and were you doing what you could to help improve our chances to win? And that's all that ever mattered to me. And at the end of the day, when it comes to Harper or Dylan or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, that's all people are really going to care about, because people have to be who they are. They have to have their personalities, whatever that may be. And I don't know. I kind of hope that makes sense. Does that make sense, Jake?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad you kind of put it that way, is that, everybody's going to have their different abilities. But like you said, there's expectations to fill out your role on the team. And so, we see that all the time is, can guys live up to their role on the team? It's not necessarily everybody's expected to be the superstar.
All right, man. Who's going to be the backup quarterback this year? I want to know now. I want to know, who is it, Jake? Who's it going to be?
That's a good battle, I think.
That's not an answer. I want an answer. Who's it going to be?
If I had to predict, I don't know. Jalen Gramstad seems to have the lead on it.
Well, he's the backup right now.
Yeah.
Then Marcus Davia from Purdue, 4-star coming out of high school. He's got 4 years of eligibility. TJ Lateef, who was actually here in December for some of the bowl prep practices. All right, true freshman. Another 4-star guy, very talented. We got a talented quarterback room. I mean, Jalen Gramstad's like basically another coach. As we sit here, right now, you can go back to watching Jalen in his NAIA days. Played for titles, won awards, did a lot of good things, was a safety actually before he was a quarterback, which tells me two things. It tells me he can run, and depending on what type of safety he was, probably not afraid of contact. Had he played DB, the jury would still be out on that. And yes, I'm throwing a blanket over DBs. I'm just, so you got to prove yourself to me as a DB. Like as a D lineman, you probably don't think I can cover people. Okay, I got to prove that. Like as a DB, are you going to hit people or not? I got to see this, all right? But as a safety, more safeties than not are willing to come down and fill the hole and hit somebody in the mouth. So it tells me he's like another coach on the field. He can move well. He's got experience. Yes, is at a different level. I understand that, but he's got experience. Okay, he's probably not afraid of contact. And you may know this, but Dylan wanted him to come back. Okay, because Jalen thought about not coming back. So right now he's a backup quarterback. You look at Marcos, the quarterback from Purdue, probably a little bit more physically talented, probably just like TJ Lateef. And I mean, I don't know. My gut tells me it's probably going to be Gromstad or Marcos. Not that TJ can't win it, but you've always got the error of erring towards him using that red shirt. But in this day and age, how's a player going to feel about that? It's almost like a red shirt is a bad thing. Where to me, a red shirt back when I played was an extra bonus season. Like I was trading, if had I played as a true freshman, I was trading my worst season for what was my best season as a fifth-year senior, a guy who was literally 4.5 years older when I waited to play the additional season as a fifth-year player, as a senior with a red shirt versus playing as a true freshman and a freaking teenager. But guys don't see it that way nowadays. The world is very different. You look at Malachi Coleman. I wonder, had he played last year, would he still be here? Obviously, there's a reason he didn't play. We didn't get a whole bunch of information on that. He's up at Minnesota now. We'll see what happens there. But to me, I wonder, had he played, would he have viewed it a little bit differently? But we also don't know the details as to why he did or did not play. So we'll see how he does up in Minnesota. I'm very curious to see how that pans out. And frankly, I'm rooting for him. But what are your thoughts on this quarterback battle? And each of us has to give a prediction. Admittedly, way too early. April, I was supposed to start. I completely forgot. I was going to start today's show with this is my last day on the ticket. I forgot it was April Fool's.
Nice. Yeah.
I got all wrapped up in the Will Ferrell yelling at his kid's bit, and I related to that way too much. But we each got to make a prediction.
Well,
who's going to be the backup?
I think it's fascinating because I think how you control and use that room could be dependent on the situation, right? If Dylan Raiola, you need to spell him for a game and Jalen Gramstad, or not a game, a series, a snap or two. Jalen Gramstad's been the backup, getting those reps. Maybe you put him in, but if Dylan Raiola is out for 5 or 6 games, has a long-term injury, do you switch it up? Do you think Marcus, between Marcus Davia and TJ Lateef, is one of them, maybe have a higher upside to kind of get you through that longer stretch? So I think it's fascinating. I think it could be dependent on the situation. I'd have to go with Gramstad right now because, they're calling him grandpa and all that sort of stuff. Say it'll make an excellent coach one day. So at least you would think that he could, run through that offense pretty well. Obviously wouldn't have, again, the upside that you would have with Dylan and those other guys, but it'd be fun to see. It would be a fun story if Jalen Gramstad, not hoping for it necessarily, because obviously we want Dylan to stay healthy. But if there is some story of Jalen Gramstad having to get out there and help Nebraska winning a game, it would be an incredible story. And those other guys, you have to remember, Davia hasn't had a snap. He's the year ahead, right? And he did the redshirt year, so maybe he's in a better position than TJ Lateef. But Lateef, I think, had to come here with some understanding that he wasn't going to play right away. And so, I think he would be okay with that. But again, you also have the opportunity to play 4 games without burning that red shirt. So maybe, part of recruiting him was telling him that you could get him on the field at least. So I think there's a lot of moving parts there. I think they've done a good job to set up, a backup quarterback situation that could become very important. Again, it's football at any time during the season. But if I had to pick today, I'd go with Gramstad.
In order for Lateef to be the backup, because sometimes in a position battle, there's a clear, concise, better player. Sometimes it's tight, and it's almost a coin toss, and you could go either way. And then a coach will either err towards the younger guy because he's trying to build a program, or he'll err towards the older guy just because he has experience until the younger guy gets experience. And then there's times when a player is just ahead of the other guy. So my question to you is, if TJ Lateef is just bare, because the tiebreaker to me is the potential red shirt. Okay. If he's tied with Gramstad and tied with Davia, so to speak, the tiebreaker is the red shirt. Okay. He can always red shirt, depending on how he feels about that. But let's say he's just ahead of Gramstad and just ahead of Davia. Do you put him at number 2, knowing that red shirt's right there?
I would, especially because in the modern era, because you might be redshirting him for Bowling Green or Kansas or whoever down the line, and so that. But then the other thing is just how important this year is. If he's just a little bit better and you're losing by 3, maybe just a little bit better is the difference between a win and a loss. And a few wins and losses this year, it really is going to set up the amount of pressure going into year 4.
I agree with that. Either way, Jalen's going to be done after this year. He's a senior. I think you got to play the better guy. The other thing you got to do is you can play him in 4 games, keep the red shirt. But also, if he's going to be the backup, he needs experience throughout the year. You can't just say, hey, we're going to get you 4 games right out the gate. Then comes Iowa. He hasn't seen the field in 2 months. Dylan gets knocked out at halftime, and bam, here comes this kid who has played a little bit in 4 games because you had the red shirt that you could save. You could be the backup, but he hasn't played in 2 months. And so I think you have to go with clearly the better player. I think I brought this, or whoever the better player is, I think I brought this up last time we debated this, 3 or 4 weeks ago. To this day, I brought up Zach Potter blocking the PAT or the 2 straight field goals, burning a red shirt for that. And then it turned out that's why we beat Pittsburgh. And then Harrison Beck, that game versus Kansas State, I couldn't believe we brought him in. First of all, I didn't think he was the number 2 best quarterback. I didn't trust him any farther than I could throw him. I might be able to throw him a fair piece, but you get my point. It's just like
he's getting bigger now. He might be tough to throw.
Oh, maybe. Okay. That's a topic for another day. Throw God. Throw God. You remember Throw God?
That's right.
Oh, boy. Go Google that or YouTube that, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you've not had a big meal beforehand, though. I'm just saying. But I was like, man, we're burning a red shirt. I'm not even, I think he was ahead of Gans. Was he ahead of Gans that year? Because I thought Gans was better. I could be wrong. I might be getting my years mixed up. And I was just like, oh, man. And then he came in and we won. So Bill Callahan was 2 for 2 on burning red shirts with true freshmen and us. We beat Kansas State. We beat Pittsburgh with Harrison Beck coming in and Zach Potter blocking 2 straight field goals. So what the heck do I know?
Yeah.
Bill Callahan should be sitting in my seat right now. You think people would listen to what he has to say?
Oh, a Bill Callahan radio program in Lincoln would just, I think that would do good numbers. Yeah.
I think it would do good for about a week.